Hello guys, this is William Agnew. Welcome back to another episode of Cellular Repair School TV. I have with me Dillion, a hero Dillion to be exact.
Yep.
Dillion works for Gearvana, which is a repair facility that we are affiliated with. So Dillion, I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and help out.
Cool. Excellent. So we're just going to ask Dillion a few questions from a technician perspective, because Dillion has been a technician for, Dillion, how long have you been a technician in the cell phone repair space?
6 to 8 months, around there.
Right.
More like 7 to 8. I guess 6 to 8.
About 6 to 8 months?
A wide span. So.
Cool. Well, that's interesting, because Dillion is, and we've actually interviewed technicians before, and Dillion, I must say you are probably one of the more, I'd say green, for lack of a better word, of the technicians that we've actually interviewed, 6 to 7 months. Most of the time we interview technicians around maybe a year or two. Mm-hmm. So this is great, and this is definitely what I think people who are looking to get into business would want to know, 6 or 7 months. So Dillion, let me ask you, have you ever had any technical, as far as, I guess, electronics repair experience, maybe even hobbies? Have you ever had, dealt with repair before you actually got into the cell phone repair space?
My big thing is, and you would think that it's like from the past,
right.
But I do a lot of stuff on original Nintendos.
Right.
Switching out electronics on them and everything. That's kind of my hobby, is collecting. And that's kind of what really got me into, I'm doing all this old stuff.
Right.
I need to get set up and do, I enjoy doing this. I need to get set up and start doing the new stuff.
Right.
So that's really kind of what got me into it and got me interested in working with like cell phones and newer video game consoles.
Okay. So how did you come across, how did you become a part of Gearvana?
I had a friend doing it. He really enjoyed his job, and he was just constantly telling me stuff. Oh yeah, there's this soldering job I did and everything that I was like, I feel like I need to learn that skill.
Exactly.
It was something that, he was always telling me about and everything, that it was like, I'd like to get in on that. It's definitely a great skill to have, especially in this time.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. So Dillion, you said you've been in the business for, 6 to 7 months as far as a repair business technician. How long do you think it would take to actually, how do you feel about your skill set? Do you feel like you're where you want to be? Like, give the technicians or the people potentially who are going to be in your shoes here in the next, week or two, or looking to be in your shoes. Where exactly can they expect to be as a technician in 6 to 7 months in this business?
Really, I feel a lot of it is about drive and where you want to be. I've definitely seen some people that 6 to 7 months, they're still working on the easy stuff that, it takes a lot of drive and open to learn new things. There's new cell phones that come out every week.
It seems like every day.
And you got to be prepared for that,
Exactly.
And there's always stuff that I look on that I'm like, I need to be better at this. I need to be more proficient on this and everything. And that's the great thing about working on this kind of stuff is there's always new stuff. It's trial and error.
Yeah. So that's a good actually. That brings me into my next question. So how do you approach that in new stuff? Because this is a conversation we have with our students all the time, because they come here for training, right? And it's a 5-day training, and they're like, and a lot of what I have to, tell them and help them understand a lot of times is it's a continuous training, right? It's a continuous training because like you just said, it doesn't end when you walk out of the door, right? You're always going to be, doing more new stuff just because of the nature of this business. So how do you prepare for that, or how do you approach, that as a technician? The change, I guess.
That is kind of the fun part. It's almost like a stressful fun where you're like, it was the same thing with all the new cell phones coming out, like the S3, the Note 2 and everything, that it was, the way I approach it is very carefully because these parts are very expensive.
Right.
But that's the whole part of it is trial and error and learning these things, where I remember it used to be telling customers 2 to 3 hours, Now it's less than an hour. That's the fun part of the phone. I look back and I go, man, this repair used to make me sweat. Now I'm like, oh, hey, I got this, no problem.
Right.
And that's how you always got to take it.
Which is the fun part, right? I mean, it's definitely not the same thing every day.
It absolutely not. You know, I'm waiting for next month to see what people are going to start bringing me, and
Right.
and just prepare. You know, you got to realize that in this, mistakes are going to happen, and you just got to prepare so when these mistakes happen, that you're ready to fix them.
Absolutely.
To make it better next time, that you don't
Absolutely.
make them.
So it looks like you love your job. How do you feel?
I enjoy it, you know. I enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
the creative part, you definitely get to tap into the creative part of problem solving a lot, right? I mean, how much problem solving do you actually have to do from day to day?
Oh, nonstop.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I hate worse is letting down people. You know, sometimes things are too messed up.
Right.
But I mean, it was just yesterday I had a customer come in and said, "Oh, you know, I was told that this can't be fixed."
Right.
And it was, you know what? Let me take it in. Let me take a look at it.
Right.
Fixed her issue for her, and she could not be happier. And
Right.
this is somebody else telling her, another tech.
Right.
And that's what I think that's one of the biggest drives that I have.
Yeah.
Is
making people
it's
feel
almost
good.
proving people wrong.
Right.
And that's you know,
Right.
as you get better, you know, when I first started, but you know, I definitely had that drive to make these things work when people say they can't.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, man. That's excellent. So let me ask you, what would you say if you had one thing to pick, right? One thing to pick, what has been your biggest challenge in the cell phone repair space? That
man.
one thing, only one thing you can pick. What's been the
Cell
biggest?
phones only?
Cell phones. Well, you know, and mobile device. Let's say mobile devices.
Oh man.
What has been your biggest? And that includes, you know, tablets. Obviously.
Nintendo DS's.
Nintendo
You know,
DS's.
I started getting into it, repairing Nintendos and putting new pins in them.
Right.
And Nintendo DS's, you know, and that's a constant thing that I always have to drive for because, you know, it's, I do bad, but I know I get better and better.
better.
It seems like it's very slow.
Right.
But I know the
as
more
compared to
that I
everything
do,
else, right?
compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Oh man, just handheld video game things that we get in sometimes can be the biggest. And you know, they're not. Some of them aren't that new, you know. But
Yeah.
man, Nintendo, they got it out for me.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, since we're on that topic, how do you deal with stress? Like, because I imagine, you know, this is a very stressful environment for some people, you know, technicians specifically, when things don't go as well as planned, right? Which does happen sometimes.
Oh yeah, all the time.
How do you deal with that stress sometimes? How do you deal with it? What do? You micro breaks? Do you kind of step back away from it? You know, how do you deal with it?
You know, I try not to step back too much because, you know, doing this stuff, when you tend to set stuff to the side and then you work, and then
Kind of get away
you know
from
what, I'm going to do this and everything, you know.
Right.
I like to make sure that I'm still going at it and everything, and, you know, look things up, get a clear view. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
How can I make this easier?
Right.
In the first place, it's just kind of setting that up, you know.
Right.
You got to be prepared because things in this business aren't always going to go the way that you wish.
Right.
Nice and clean.
Not
and
always
perfect.
ideal, right?
And you
Not
got to be
always
ready
perfect.
for that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things is, you know, I mess up all the time.
Right.
But, you know, I go about it. I fix what I do mess up and
Right.
make sure that when stuff comes out that
Absolutely.
I'm happy with
Yeah.
it.
Right.
I can't stand. I have a horrible day if I feel like something went out that wasn't to my high expectations.
Your expectation, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So you have a pride in your work.
Absolutely.
Is huge.
I think that's something that you definitely need to is having pride in your work and not just doing this and going, all right, I'm done, you know.
Pay me my money.
I mean, sometimes I do things and I got to tell my other, dude, you see what I did? Check this out. You see that? Man, this thing looks great. You know, you got to have pride in your work. And
Absolutely.
that's, I think, one of the number one things to grow and rise is taking pride.
Well, Dillion, you know what? That probably answered my last question, which is what advice would you give anyone? You know, if there was a guy right there looking at us now, and he's right there at the door, and he's thinking about walking through it, you know, to become a technician or have a business, which I'm sure there's a lot of people out there right now watching this who are like that. You know, they're making a decision based on what you say next, right? They're going to make the decision as to whether they should do this or not. What advice would you give that person coming to walk through that door?
I definitely say you're probably going to break stuff. Just don't break too much.
Right, right.
And that's, one of the biggest things I think when I started is, when you're learning, you make mistakes and stuff like that, sometimes you got to realize you're going to break something.
You're going to break something.
Just make sure you got another part to repair it back together correctly.
Exactly.
So, and that's part of it, mistakes happen. You just got to make sure that you keep going with it.
Right.
And making sure that you're giving your all.
Absolutely. Well, Dylan,
hey,
really enjoyed the conversation.
I hope we do this more.
Glad you were here. We absolutely will. We will definitely have Dylan back. Dylan, we want to thank you for coming by. Again, this has been Cellular Repair School TV. And my name is William Agnew. Dylan, Hero Dylan, for Gear of Honor. And we'll see you guys in the next training. Bye-bye.